Rob Maaddi's here for the Associated Press. There he is, if you're watching the show live. It's funny because I didn't realize that Howie Roseman was going to speak yesterday until about 24 hours beforehand. And he spoke yesterday, had some very interesting things to say. So I figured last week I turned you into a Roseman apologist, that I would bring you back and see what we learned. I thought there was a lot of interesting things. I had a lot of takeaways from this. One, did Roseman, he was asked essentially if he diverted from his board last year, and he didn't poo-poo that one at all. Were you surprised?
No, I think because, Mike, it's been well documented by now that it's hard to really go back on that. And he kind of, and at the same time, because it didn't pan out, he wants it to be known while it didn't work out because I did deviate from my board. And perhaps my board had Justin Jefferson, but I deferred to other people who wanted Jalen Reagor. So I think there's a little bit of self-serving in doing that. And I get it, and I understand that. There's so many different things that are going on behind the scenes there. You got the analytical department, the scouting department, the personnel, everybody. And it's hard. What we saw yesterday, Mike, when they came out, it was they knew all of this stuff has been reported, obviously, and they wanted to make a point of it from Andy Weidl, Howie Roseman, and Nick Sirianni to impress upon us how cohesive they are. The chemistry is so good. They're all working together and getting to know each other, and we're all in sync and we're all on board. So next year, these stories don't leak in case something happens.
Okay, and I like that you said that because at the end of that, he kind of insinuated that we like our players and we're excited that the new coaching staff will get their hands on them. Is that insinuating that we don't think the old coaching staff did a very good job with the players we gave them? We lost Rob for a second there. Let's see if we go. There he is. There he is.
Right? We drafted the right guys. They weren't coached up well enough, Mike. See.
Oh, there he is. Rob Maaddi is back. Yeah, we had a complete internet outage for about 2-3 minutes there, but we're back. I think you're there, right?
I'm here. Yeah, you froze on me, man. So everything's good over there? All right.
Yeah, it was the whole building went down, phones and everything. But
Were you off air? Did you go off air?
No, the radio side we were on. The video side we went out, but the phones were out and everything. So everybody out there. All right, so we lost you right around when we were talking about, them getting, hey, we gave you these guys, but we didn't think the coaching staff did a very good job with them.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit of a throwing under the bus, a little subtle shot at the old coaching staff. And I could understand that we brought these guys in. They still want to see what they invested in heavily in wide receivers in the past couple drafts. They invested in other players, maybe a new coaching staff. Younger guys can relate to them better and coach them up better and get them to play. So I can see their thought process there. And whenever you have an old coaching staff and they're out the door and then they're saying things behind, as anonymous sources, they're leaking information to reporters, and this is what was happening and that was what happening. So they're going to give it back to them a little bit. And I get it. I see what's going on there. And hopefully Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff can get through to these guys. And there's a lot of young players on this team, a lot of young players. And Mike, I've talked to a couple of his former players, Jacoby Brissett last week, Trey Burton yesterday. Spoke to Trey Burton. He had high praise for Nick Sirianni. Said again, he's going to do really well with the young players. He can relate to them. He can get them to understand the terminology and everything. So that's exciting. And obviously, he's an excitable dude.
Yeah, he really is. And I want to get to him in just a moment because you said there's a lot of young players. How does he relate with the older players? Do they look at this guy and think, because when Chip was here, that people thought, hey, he's a college coach, and the veterans didn't really like how that rah-rah. Does Sirianni have another gear? Is he like that with everybody? Does he know who that he can be like that with? I guess that remains to be seen, but have you got that feedback?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And while I was talking to Trey and he said that, and as he was saying how well he relates to the younger players, he made sure, he said, not to say that he's not going to be able to get through to the veteran guys either, because he's right around their age, and I think he can relate even better to them because, right, Nick's in his 30s, some of these young, well, he's still older than was Brandon Graham 33, right around there. Trey made sure to let it be known that he thinks he can relate to the veteran guys as well. So that remains to be seen. We know this, man. He gets fired up about talking about football, and it's different. It's different than what we're used to here in Philadelphia, and I think it's refreshing. Mike.
Yeah, I thought he was the star of the show. I thought it was refreshing. I likened it to, Rob, you get hired at a new job, you're in the building, and you're like in your cubicle, and you don't feel comfortable. And then after 3 weeks of like walking around, you start to feel better. I felt like after the first press conference, he was just warming up. And now he knows everyone in the building, and his personality came out. And he really took over to the point. The one question was asked about the ex-receivers and what do you look for in that. Roseman deferred to him for the answer.
Yeah, and he was not short on words and explanations or anything. Like, there was one question, I forget which one it was, where he jumped in. He said, "You didn't ask me, but here, I'll give you my thoughts. I'll give you my opinions." So he's one of those guys who I think over time, Mike, he'll see with this media and this fan base that maybe longer, elaborate answers isn't the way to go. I like it. I appreciate it. I enjoy it as we continue. And that might be unfortunate, because how many times do we sit back and go, I wish this guy would say something. Andy Reid never said anything. These guys, they never say anything. Doug Peterson, he won't tell you, and he fights with the media or whatever it is. And now here comes Nick. He's fun. He's engaging. He isn't condescending in any way, shape, or form. He just loves football. Yeah. So I'm all for it.
I thought he said a lot of interesting things, though, regarding, hey, not that other coaches probably don't have this, but he actually said it like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to show him what my guy did in this offensive play, and then I'm going to show him which college receiver can be that guy in my offense. Like, it was like, that's pretty, but I was almost wondering if Roseman and Weidel were looking at him like, yo, man, calm down over there, or did they enjoy it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think they had a problem with it. Maybe they tell him not to go on and be as elaborate and not to give long explanations sometimes. I don't know if he's heard that yet. I don't know if he's been told that yet. But I think they sat back and enjoyed it too as well. And they were like, hey, that's less for us to have to do, because the GM has to do that. The NFL mandates that the GM has to, before the draft, speak to the media. It's not like he wants to do it. Howie never wants to speak to us. He had to do it. So if he can do it, and Nick's going to take up half the news conference or 75% of it, that's less that he has to tell, or less that he can avoid telling us.
Any clues from Howie or Andy yesterday? I want to get your answer first, because I took one little breadcrumb from it. Did you get any insider clue to what they could do?
Everything. Everything's on the table. And I think they wanted to leave it out there. Now, obviously, Nick loves the wide receivers, and he made that be known. And I don't read anything into it other than he was a wide receivers coach, and he's excited about wide receivers. And that just allows other teams to think if there's a wide receiver there that they want, and the Eagles are picking at 12, they may want to trade with them. The fact that they named Jalen Hurts a starter is just draft strategy, more about the preaching competition. So I didn't take anything out of that either. I think that all options are on the table. They're not going to be, and smartly so, they weren't going to say, oh, yeah, small guys? No, we're not interested in small guys. Devonta Smith, he's not going to be. There was nothing like, I don't know if you were around for Buddy Ryan calling Keith Byers a medical reject and then drafting him in the first round for his first draft. There was none of that yesterday.
No, I was just a little young for Buddy. I was right around, I was like in my 10, 11, 12-year-old. But so Weidel was asked about the guard situation, the two offensive linemen, Slater and Vera Tucker, and how he answered the question. Then he deferred to Weidel, and they brought up Isaac Seumalo and that he could play center and guard, which would mean we could draft somebody not thinking that we need a center or a guard because he could do both. And that was the first time it entered my mind of they might trade back and get themselves an offensive lineman. Like, that was my first thing of, you know what? Next year, Kelsey's gone. We move Seumalo to center, and we have Slater or Ali Vera Tucker, and he plays tackle. And that was the first time I was like, maybe they get that offensive lineman.
Welcome to my side, Mike. That's what I've been thinking for a few weeks now. If I had to make the pick right now for them, if you had to tell me bet which way they go, I think it's more likely than not a drastic, it's not like 80-20, but I think it's more likely than not that they trade back, accumulate more draft assets, and draft in the trenches and probably an offensive lineman, which I probably would be okay with depending on the number, right? Are you 18? Are you 17? I don't know if I want that guy at 12, but I might be okay with that guy at 16, 17, or 18 if you've given me another pick somewhere. And maybe they move up in the first round and they get a defensive back in the first round, like a corner at 30 or 29 or 31 or wherever. And then I feel really good about having a potential stud offensive lineman and a potential shutdown corner.
Yeah, that's it. Like, if New England calls and says, hey, we'll give you 15 and 12, we'll flip, you get the lineman at 15, or Chicago at 20. You think Chicago, all right, I was talking about this earlier. If Chicago calls you, do you demand a first-round pick? And every answer I give them is, your quarterback's Andy Dalton. I'll have a first-round pick. No, we can't give you – wait, your quarterback is Andy Dalton. We'll take a first-round pick. Can you get another one?
Get a one by going 12 to 20? I don't think you can.
Next year's draft.
Yeah, I don't think you can get a 20 next year by going 12 to 20. However, there's a way you could do that maybe, Mike. If you give them 12 and maybe a 3 or a 2 and then get 20 in next year's one. Maybe there's a way they can do that. I don't know. If I'm Chicago, I don't know if I want to do that. But what are they moving up to 12 for?
A quarterback.
Right. That's the only scenario where they would move up to 12.
Right, and you hold that over their head. I know you want a quarterback. There's a premium on that. You want a quarterback. You want to move up 8 spots, and your quarterback is currently Andy Dalton, by the way. I want to remind you.
Don't discount Nick Foles, man. He's there. St. Nick is still in Chicago right now.
They announced that Dalton was their QB1, right?
Imagine that. A team announced who their quarterback is ahead of time, right? No, and the Eagles, like smartly so, didn't with Jalen for that reason. At 12, hey, we might take Trey Lance, Mac Jones, who's going to be there. I saw both names potentially available there at 12. I see both guys maybe going in the top 6 too. So we don't know, man. I'm looking forward to next Thursday so we can get this over with.
I am and I'm not. I love the draft. I love all the stuff, and then it happens, and then you're like football. Because what's happening with after the draft? Anything? We got the OTAs. Anything? What's the schedule?
I don't know, Mike. Can I get a day off? That's all I want, dude. I just want a day off.
Well, the Phillies are in Colorado. You're not following them, right?
No, but I say NFL's 365, man. It's crazy. But yeah, afterwards you're going to have the mini camp for the rookies. But the Eagles have already told their players that they're all going to do it virtually right now. So I don't think there's going to be much for media other than some virtual stuff until probably the mandatory minicamp, and we'll see how they handle that in late May.
All right, Rob Maaddi, the Associated Press covers the Eagles and the Phillies. Just had a nice sit-down with, a virtual sit-down with Jimmy Rollins. So check that out on his you can follow him on Twitter, @Rob Maaddi. If you're watching the show, you can see that up on the screen. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, man, good to see you.
Thank you, man. Have a great one.